welcome to the Clock and Talk. I'm your host, Tez. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. What an emotional day it was yesterday. Arsene Wenger, 22 years, and he's left Arsenal. And I'll go straight to Schwinn because he's the crybaby of the group. How are you, buddy?
Not too bad. Doing all right. I'm not the crybaby. Come on, fence sitter and crybaby. Really? Are we going down this road now?
I seen a question that was asked who was the biggest crier out of me and you, so I thought, I might as well go straight to you first.
I'm pretty sure that question was pointed towards Tony as well.
Oh, was it? Since you mentioned Tony, we better welcome him. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, and I definitely don't cry as much as Schwinn does. So you can rule me out of that one. But yeah, I'm good, thanks. I enjoyed yesterday. It was bittersweet. Obviously, we're going to get onto that because it'd be a very weird podcast if we didn't mention it. But yeah, I'm all good.
Good day. Since you brought it up, mate, I just want to touch on. I haven't got the journalist in front of me. The first thing he tweeted was, they've bought out the red shirts to cover up the empty seats. So you were at the stadium. Was there many empty seats? Because it didn't look like it on TV.
There was none. I mean, obviously there was probably one or two dotted about, but there was next to none. Like, I didn't see any, really. So I don't know who tweeted that. I've not even seen that. I've not heard any other media outlet mention it either. So I don't know if it's someone just trying to be clever or funny. But no, the stadium was very much full.
Yeah, okay. Talk us through the atmosphere, mate, from the time you got there and the listeners so they can get a bit of a feel on what was actually happening at the ground.
Well, it was weird. I got there 3.5 hours before kickoff, and the stadium's not open then. But I was wanting to go for a drink with all my mates because it's the last home game of the season. So if they're only football friends, I won't see them again until August. So we all went to the pub quite early. But getting there at 1 o'clock, so 3.5 hours before kickoff, I've never seen so many people around the stadium at that time. Usually it's empty. Like, you wouldn't know there's going to be a football match on. It was busier with 3.5 hours to go than it usually is with an hour to go. It was crazy. Obviously, I went to the pub, came back, and yeah, it was a bit of a weird one because everyone was sort of joyous. The football was definitely an afterthought. Like, the game no one really cared about. There was a good atmosphere in the stands. It wasn't as loud as, say, Atletico, but everyone was positive. I mean, I'd read reports before of people going, "Oh, I'm coming for the game, and that's it. I'll be leaving on the final whistle. I don't want to celebrate him. He's ruined our club, blah, blah, blah." I saw that on Twitter, but I didn't see a single person with that attitude at the game. I know someone from Arsenal Fan TV has apparently said that he refused to clap Wenger off the pitch. He stood in the concourse in silence because he didn't deserve Wenger. Didn't think Wenger deserved the celebration. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But then that's the man he is.
So you say man without a name. I can only think of one silly old full name, Claude.
That's the one.
What a fool! What a goose! Look, it was. What do you say? Love him or hate him, you've got to respect the man and respect for what he's done at our club and Arsenal. Because have we had a better manager at Arsenal?
For me, absolutely not. I mean, I know some people will question it based on the last 11 years of Wenger, but for me, I think you'd be silly to question that if he's our greatest manager or not. I don't even think there's a question. I mean, obviously, you have to have honourable mentions to people like Herbert Chapman, and people may shoehorn George Graham into that conversation. I wouldn't personally, but I can understand how they would. But for me, Wenger comes out on top by a distance. I don't know. Again, everyone knows that on this podcast we're not big on stats, but one that remains, and I'd say it's more of a fact than a stat, if Wenger stayed for another 100 games as Arsenal manager and lost every single one of them, he would still have the best win rate of any Arsenal manager.
Well, I'll go to you, Schwinn, because you were pretty fired up by a couple of tweets early in the night before the game kicked off with some of these so-called fans, or fans, so I'm not going to question whether they are or not, saying that they won't be clapping and they'll be leaving and whatnot. They show no respect to the man.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty. I wake up, it's a nice sunny day outside, and I'm walking out, enjoying the streets and having a look at what people are talking about, how people are preparing for the game. as Tony said, there were a lot of people who were going to the stadium early. There were long queues everywhere. People wanted to capture this moment, capture this day. And then you have these other twats on social, and for no reason trying to start a fire. Essentially, I'm pretty sure anyone who went to the game yesterday stayed till the very end. You cannot detach yourself from that emotion. And to see this in the build-up just wasn't pretty to me. And I didn't want to get into an argument with anyone because I don't respect my fandom more than anyone else's fandom. Everyone has their own way of dealing with, with the way things go. But it wasn't pretty, and I decided to just take some time away, and I made it right and back in time for the game. And that's when I started tweeting again. But it was really sad because, as Tony said, there's so much this man has given us, not just his time, but his relationships. He's lost family. He's lost his wife for probably a multitude of reasons. But he stayed with us through thick and thin, and he transformed our club to what it is today. I don't want to get into a debate of who's the better manager out of Chapman, Graham, and Wenger, because I don't think that's what we need to do right now. I think we need to look at the last 22 years of Arsenal, nothing before that, and just see what this man has done for us. And it's irreplaceable. I would not change that, not a single result, not a single game for anything, because he's been such a stalwart and he's been such a father figure, not just for Arsenal players, current and past, but for Arsenal fans. I think a lot of us derive a lot of values from him. And to disown him at the very end of his career, even after he's announced that he's leaving, is preposterous and immature. So I didn't have time for any of those bastards.
Well said, mate. But since we're talking about Wenger and his legacy and what he's done for the club, I've got a question here from at SFTS number 1. What for you, and I'd imagine it'd be different for you all, is Wenger's legacy? Schwinn?
Look, Wenger's legacy stands tall in Islington. We don't have to really look beyond that. But I would go a step further and talk about the way he's revolutionized the game and he's internationalized the Premier League. In a lot of ways, and I think Rory Smith said this a few weeks ago, that he fell victim to the same internationalization that he brought about in the English game. And we would not be, as a league, as a sport, in England particularly, where we are today. So you can look at the microcosm of Arsenal and see where he's brought us, what he's done for the club. But what he's done for football, I think, far outweighs anything else.
Tony, what's your legacy, mate?
I saw a quote online, so I'm not claiming this is mine, but I couldn't agree with it anymore, and it kind of detracts from other people as well. So the quote was, and I've got it in front of me, forget the trophies, the doubles, the invincibles, the top four, all of the Wenger out nonsense at the end. His legacy is that he made a club who had never got anywhere near a Champions League or European Cup, as it was before that, semi-final, let alone a final, feel like we're failures for not winning it in his time. And I think that just shows the level where we've come from. Everyone says, oh, what's he ever done in Europe? But as a club, we'd never even got to a semi-final before him. So I just think that shows that where he got us from and where he raised us to, despite the failures in the last however many years you want to say, 1, 4, 5, 12, despite them failures, it shows that the expectations are probably more because of him.
I couldn't agree more, and he's tried to put us up on that pedestal. Schwinn, you got any last words, mate, before we move on and get into this game?
All I'll say is that at his worst, he provided us with a European semi-final and a 6th place position. But at his best, he finished invincible. And I think people will, looking back, will only remember the gold and the apex of what he achieved. And I couldn't be more happy about the way we parted ways in terms of bestowing upon him the greatest honor we could and in the most classy way we could. So I'm very proud of my club. I'm very proud of our club. And I'm very proud of the man that made us who we are today.
Tony, you got anything lastly to say, mate, before we get into this game?
I kind of just want to extend on Schwinn saying that his worst time he got us 6th place in the European semi-final, but I think that's looking short term. People would say the last 5 years have been his worst time at the club, or definitely his worst quarter at the club. and in that time he delivered 3 FA Cups. That's better than a lot of teams' best times. So his worst 5 years are better than a lot of teams' best 5 years. That says enough for me.
Yeah. Okay. Righto, let's get into this game then. And I know the game was a bit of an afterthought, with the celebrations and whatnot going on, and Schwinn crying in the background. But we'll
oh, wow.
Sorry, mate. I will say for the record.
You're going to make me cry live now, aren't you?
I will say for the record, I did have a tear. And I'm not a man that does shed too many tears, but I did shed a tear for that yesterday. It was a sad moment. So a sad but happy moment, because it was a legacy that I didn't want tarnished for Wenger, and I'm glad that he got the send off that he deserved. Tony, getting into this lineup, mate, was it the lineup you expected?
Yes and no. Obviously, I said last week that I thought Mavropanos should start 2 of the 3 games, and the one I thought he would miss is this one, just because I thought this game would be more about sort of legacy than team. Obviously, with Koscielny injured, it made him more likely, but again, I still thought that maybe players that had played a lot more would play, just because the way to end the Wenger era, so to speak. So I thought players like Monreal would play. I thought Ozil would play. Obviously, there's an injury issue there. So the team, I didn't really know what to expect, but when I was picking the team, I was picking on a team that's good enough to win the game, but also one that represents Wenger throughout his time at Arsenal. So I was a bit shocked with seeing the likes of Mavropanos and Chambers and Iwobi to an extent, because I thought Ramsey would have played again, just because he's played more under Wenger. I wasn't disappointed with the team news. I was just shocked that for obviously the reasons I've just said. I
was a bit shocked. Mustafi was on the bench. Mertesacker, I probably should have put two together and gone, it's his last home game and he's retiring. They'll probably come on the bench and he'll come on the last 10 or 20 minutes or so. So I didn't even click on that though when we were talking on our last podcast about Mertesacker. The other one that I was a bit surprised, Holding, is he injured or something?
No, he was there. My friend saw him before the game and got a few selfies with him and stuff. As I said last week, I'm convinced that him signing a new contract means he's going out on loan. I've got no basis on that. It's just the way things sometimes work in football. So if they're planning on sending him out on loan, there's no point giving him the 2 games. It looks like, from what we've seen in recent team news, that Holding's going to go out. Mavropanos and Chambers are going to stay. So if they're the 2 that are going to be there next year, then by all means play them. And I think that's, as I said it last week about with Holding signing the contract, and then the team news yesterday kind of confirmed that idea in my head.
Okay. Schwinn, what was your take on the lineup, mate?
I didn't have a take on the lineup. It's probably the first time when I didn't log into Twitter and see what the lineup is an hour before the game. I switched on the telly about half an hour.
You did have the shits, didn't you?
I really did. I mean, not to go into it too much, but I wasn't feeling great yesterday. And I mean, what happened after the game in terms of the celebrations and, the small presentation didn't help either. I think, if anything, that was much more emotional. So I really didn't care. To be honest, I don't even remember what my predicted lineup was from last week, because of different emotions, of course, of bowing out of the Europa League. So I did want to see Mesut play, just because it was Arsenal's last game at home. And as Tony alluded to, that, you wanted to see an Arsene Wenger team. And Mesut Ozil, in a lot of ways, is an encapsulation of how Arsene wants to play. But I don't think we'll see him for the rest of the season, which is a bummer. But at the end of the day, we got the result. We got a very good result, a result that was deserved for the boss. And it's hard to really pinpoint mistakes in the lineup when you perform that way.
I'm going to take a leap of faith here, because this was a fucking biggest load of shit that I've ever heard, Tony. Ozil apparently signed a deal to say that he can have a couple of days off when he feels like it. Now, I'm going to pretend I'm in the know for a moment and say, what a load of shit.
Yeah, I didn't see that till late last night because I wasn't on my phone a whole lot yesterday. Obviously, I was out having a few drinks before and after the game, and just seeing friends for probably the last time this season. So I saw that quite late last night, and I had to chuckle to myself. So the official line, and I'm not here to say whether it's true or not. The official line is that Ozil has a slight back injury and he really wanted to play because it was Wenger's last game, and we all know he has huge respect for Wenger. Yep. And Ozil was apparently battling the physios who were saying, no, you can't play. And he was arguing even to be on the bench just so he's somewhat involved. Again, I don't know how true that is. Apparently he was carrying the injury somewhat against Atletico as well. But that's the official thing. But yeah, saying... I think the tweet you're referring to said he could agree 6 games a season that he doesn't have to play if he doesn't want to, but they have to be against small sides.
Yeah.
It's just the dumbest thing I've ever read. Like I was saying something, I think Ozil will play another game this season just because otherwise it will be sort of 7 weeks between him playing and the World Cup, which I know they want a bit of a rest, but that's probably a bit too much. So I'd probably expect him to play on either Wednesday or Sunday. But yeah, saying he can just choose when he wants to play is the biggest load of nonsense I've ever read. Because if that were true, if it was in his contract, which it's not, but if it was, imagine a new manager coming in saying, Ozil, we're going to, you're the key part of our system, we're going to play you at 10, everything's going to build around you. We've got Swansea away, and he goes, no, it's all right, I'm having a day off.
Yeah, having a day off, boys.
No, it's in my contract. I'm off. I'm going away. I'll see you in Dubai.
Fuck, I couldn't believe that when I read that. I thought that'll do, mate. Okay, so 14th minute, Aubameyang scores. That assist, though, by Lacazette, wasn't it brilliant, Tony?
In all fairness, and I don't often defend him, the ball from Iwobi was quality to get it through to Lacazette.
The one prop, yep.
Yeah, the pre-assist or the hockey assist.
Yeah.
That was top class from Iwobi. I don't know if I'm doing Lacazette a disservice. I think it was one of them, you hit it hard towards the back post, and if it goes in, it goes in. If someone gets across it like Aubameyang does, they score, or the keeper could save it and parry it out. I don't think it was an out-and-out cross that he'd spotted Aubameyang, but he'd done exactly the right thing. Fire it across goal and hope for the best. And Aubameyang just sniffs goals. I've often said that there'll be times where you think this guy can't do anything, he's useless, but he pops up where it matters. And there will be times, and I'll say it now, ready for next season, that we'll lose a game and they'll go, where was Aubameyang? Where was your £58 million man? But he's that type of player. He's the type of player that will be shit and score. And if he doesn't score, they'll go, see how useless he is. Mm-hmm. That's what he does. I mean, they showed it quite well on Match of the Day yesterday for anyone that listening in the UK or watches Match of the Day abroad, that he just sniffs where the ball's going to go. Like when that ball went wide, I think it was to Bellerin, it went out wide, who played it back to Iwobi, or it might even have been Lacazette. But Aubameyang was sort of on the right wing, 40 yards away from goal, and you look at it and you think, what are you doing there? Like, what use are you to anyone there? But suddenly, next thing you know, he's sprinting into the box, he's moving about in the 6-yard box, and he gets a tap in. He's just got that natural instinct that you hear about so much with strikers, and you maybe don't really understand it. How can you have an instinct to score goals? But he does.
He does, and you're dead right. What call it, fox in the box or whatnot. But you talked about that ball from Iwobi to Lacazette, and I thought, look, it was a good ball, but I thought Lacazette did well to control it because he type of come into it or twisted or something, and then took it across goal, and I thought he did well to control that ball.
Oh, no, he did. Yeah, it was a good touch, but I think out of them two actions, I think the Iwobi ball was better because he had to split it. There was a very small margin for error.
Yep.
I'm not taking anything away from Lacazette. I think he done well. As I said, I'm not sure it's particularly a cross, but he done exactly the right thing, and the touch was good. But I think Iwobi's was the ball that unlocked the defence.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree. I agree with you totally. Schwinn, now Lacazette gets the goal in the 45th minute, assist by Bellerin. But I tell you what, mate, I'm excited. Aubameyang and Lacazette next season. I just see these guys clicking together. I'm not so sure about Bellerin though, but what was your take on that goal?
Good goal once again. Again, nod to Iwobi for running at the defence and making things happen. Burnley like to sit deep, as we all know, and the best way to open up a defense like that is to get certain players out of position, and the best way to do that is to run at them. Iwobi does that well at times, and when he's high on confidence, which did seem to be the case yesterday, or relatively high at confidence, he was happy to take the ball and run at defenders. He found Bellerin, who of course found Lacazette for a very good finish. Back to your point about Aubameyang and Lacazette, they really do seem to enjoy playing with each other. And when we brought in Aubameyang, there seemed to be this tension, this speculation as to how these two will get along and if they will get along, if the manager wants to play them together or not, which is still a question considering we have a new manager coming in next season. But from what we've seen so far, it seems Aubameyang is comfortable on the wing. For the first goal, he even switched wings with Mkhitaryan, and that's where he found himself on the right side of the field. So I think there's a lot of fluidity that these new signings, along with Lacazette, have been able to provide. And when that's the case, it's very difficult for defenders to do a job on you because you're constantly switching things around, and you will be able to provide threats that way. And the second goal, I think, was a clear, demarcation of that particular threat. Just moving things along, making sure that your players are able to get behind the defense and find a ball when it's needed, and a very good quality finish.
Okay, boys, I'm going to stop this podcast because yous are taking a piss on me with this fucking Iwobi shit. No, I'm only joking. I'm not going to edit that. Let's get to Tony, your little golden boy, mate. He come up with a nice assist, Kolasinac, 54th minute.
Yeah, forget... It's not the assist that I'm impressed with, and a lot of people will probably argue with me here. The way he beat Jack Cork, there's not another Arsenal player that can do that. No one breaks the lines as well as Jack does. And then look, the ball's a standard 5-yard ball to Kolasinac, so I'm not going to pretend it's the assist of the year. But the way he breaks the lines, I think Aaron Ramsey's a better player than Jack. I've made that clear many times. I like Jack, but I think Ramsey's a better player. But Ramsey, nor anyone else, be it Xhaka, sorry Tez, be it El Neni, sorry absolutely no one, be it Ozil, sorry Schwinn, not one of our players breaks the lines as well as Jack does, and that's completely what built that goal. He broke the line, and suddenly instead of them having 8 men behind the ball, 7 men behind the ball, he's only beat 1, but he's beat a whole line of players. So now suddenly we had like 4 on 3 just by beating 1 man, and it sounds so simple, but then it's a great finish by Kolasinac. He put his head down and he's absolutely hammered it, and it's gone in. They're the type of finishes that sometimes they'll hit row Z and other times they'll go in, and everything was going for him and it went in. It's a great finish. But as I said, I was more impressed by the way Jack broke the lines than the assist itself.
Yeah, it was a good finish by Kolasinac, and I wonder where that's been for most of the season, because he started the season off pretty well, and he was the Hulk and the big boy, and great sign. But he had a real quiet middle half of that season, didn't he? And then this was a great little finish for him.
Yeah, he had a good game. It's a weird one because usually, like when he came in, he looked a bit suspect defensively, but looked very good going forward. And when he did have that bad patch, it wasn't that he got found out defensively. It was like he seemed to forget how to kick a football. It wasn't like it was his weaknesses exposed. It was what was his strength just wasn't working at all. I don't, be that injury, be it confidence, whatever it was, I don't know. But we just saw all of the pace and power and the crossing ability that he showed in the early weeks of the season. They just sort of disappeared from probably November till yesterday, pretty much.
Yeah, no, and I hope he goes well next season under our new manager, and I hope they get the best out of him, whoever that may be. So, 64th minute, Schwinn. Iwobi gets a goal with an assist with Aubameyang.
He does, and it seems like after I answer this portion, you're going to switch out the podcast once again. So I'm going to let you talk us through that. But just quickly, I do want to mention that before that goal happened, it was really nice for me to see, and I'm sure you guys would agree, the Burnley fans singing "One Arsene Wenger." I think that was pure class from those lot, which you don't usually credit them with being. And it was just a nice touch to see other fans also cherish and respect what Arsene has done for the club and for football. So I'm going to let you talk through the goal, but just my 2 cents on what precluded it.
Fucking yeah. Anyway, it was a little goal by a little Nigerian player called Iwobi. But the assist from Aubameyang, that was the icing on the cake for me. Like I've never seen such a better assist from a player of his capability. It was just all class. Iwobi, yeah, a little tap in, bit of a fluky goal.
Anything to deflect.
No, I won't.
The best assist you've ever seen.
yeah. Fuck me. We've been ripping this poor bastard off all season, and now he's had a blind and cracking of a game, and it's like, fucking the Iwobi podcast.
Credit where credit's due, my friend.
It is. No, he did have a really good game, Iwobi. But yeah, look, he did. Okay, he had a good game. I just wish we could see more good games like that from Iwobi. Then Aubameyang gets another one. Tony Bellerin assist. Your mate Bellerin.
Yeah, he was good yesterday.
He had a good game.
He wasn't really challenged defensively. Of course, that's not his fault. And he got forward well, and he picked out some better crosses than he did on last Thursday. Yeah, again, great finish again on Match of the Day yesterday. Ian Wright was talking about it, and he said that not many players would have the confidence to take that out with their laces the way Aubameyang did, and I think it even shocked the keeper. That when you're running onto a ball like that, people usually side foot, and Ian Wright said himself that he would have side footed it just to make sure he got it on target. But Aubameyang putting his foot through it like that just literally gave the keeper no chance. So as long as it's on target, it's pretty much going in. I mean, it was a good goal against an already beaten team. I don't think you can delve too deep into it. Bellerin done well, good run, good ball. I think it was Ramsey that done really well in the middle to keep the ball because it looked like we was going to lose it, and he managed to get there and play it out wide to Bellerin. I don't know if we're going to come on to it, but just after that, the Welbeck shot, he's never hit a ball cleaner in his life.
I'm trying to picture it, mate. By that stage, I'd type of... When was that? The Welbeck shot?
Well, Welbeck hit the post with the cleanest he has ever hit a football in his life.
Do you remember that, Schwinn?
I do, and even the touch that Mickey had right before that to tee him up was absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, yes.
Decent counter-attack, too.
Now, yeah. I know the one.
Yeah, I suspect there might have been a slight deflection on the shot, but that doesn't discount the fact that Welbeck got the purest of contacts to thump that ball, and it's just a pity that it hit the post and didn't ripple the net, but very, very close indeed.
I have to give a shout out to my new lover boy, Mafropanis, lads. Second game in, I'm going to buy his shirt next season. This kid is fucking unbelievable, and I won't go to Tony because he'll probably write him off. So we'll go to Schwinn. What do you take of this young bloke, mate?
You're not going to get a whole lot different from me either. It's just been one more game as opposed to last weekend. I want to get excited, but we've seen where that takes us before. And, towards the tail of the end of the season, it's very hard to judge players, especially yesterday. To his credit, the kid couldn't make a mistake yesterday. I think other than one misplaced pass, which was very ambitious and could have probably led to a chance, I don't think he made any mistake. His physicality is something we've dearly missed. And I think for being a big lump, he's also very quick. He's also seemingly building a partnership with Callum Chambers, which is always nice to see because, as we've said many times on this podcast, that centre backs should be judged in pairs. So all the signs are very good. Am I excited? Yes. But am I going to... Yeah.
I'm glad
but am I going to
excited.
say that... But am I going to say, and I'll throw this question at you, that should he start for the first game of the next season? I don't think so, and I think you'd agree with me.
Look, I'm only taking the piss as I always do here, but our defence has been, it's just been a fucking schmozzle, hasn't it, all season? And when you see Mustafi and not taking anything away from Koscielny because he has been carrying that injury, but when you see this young bloke come in 2 games, and I think, if only we had to put him in earlier, Could we? I don't know. Could we have won a few more games? Could we have beat Atletico? Who knows? It's a question it's probably a loaded question that we'll never know the answer to. But just to see what he's done in the last 2 games. Now, going with Chambers, look, it's a gamble that I'd be willing to take on the first couple of games next season, if it meant that we were going to sell you Mustafi, and we'll get on to who we're going to sell and who we're going to loan after next podcast. But it's possibly a gamble that I would take, as opposed to spending $80 million to replace the 2 centre backs. And on that note, I will go to Tony, because you give me fucking nothing, Schwinn.
Well, no, I mean, the only thing I'll say, look, he does look very good in both games. But personally, I think Chambers has been better in both. And I don't know if you remember 2 certain members of this podcast that aren't me saying earlier in the season they never wanted to see Chambers play for us again.
Yeah,
so
put my hand up.
So he's actually, look, he's been good, but for me, as I said, he's been not as good as Chambers. So I think we may be going over the top, because he's been much better than expectations. But you've got to look at the bloke next to him and say, as I said, for me, other people will disagree, that he's not been as good as the bloke next to him, who we know isn't really, we don't want as a starter for us. No, I've seen next to no one say, I want Chambers to be a starting centre-back for Arsenal. Mm. I've heard people say it about Mavropanos, but for me, Chambers has been better in both the games they've played. So it's a tough one. I agree that he's much better than we expected, and there's huge potential there. But am I saying, based on these 2 games, that he's ready to start for us from now until the end of time? I've not seen that yet.
I'm just thinking, it's probably I'm probably the only one getting a little bit excited here, but I think it's because our backline has been so poor, and the expectations of Mavropanos coming in and actually doing a couple of things right has probably got me excited, because how many times have we seen Mustafi? He's a 60-40 player. You know, he does 60% good things, but it's that 40% of shit things that probably costs the games. And a lot of quality games or close games that we probably could have won throughout the season. Kashani has been a similar. He is. I don't think Kashani's been in real good form all season. But the injury, I suppose, this kid come in January. He didn't get loaned out, but yet it's now we're actually seeing him. What would you think if we had played him earlier in the season, though, Tony? And here we are, 6-7 games out, and this kid's starting to look really, really good.
Well, that's the thing. Then you'd be able to say, so far he's looked good in 2 games that pretty much dead rubbers for both of the sides, us and our opponents. If he would have done this from 6-7 games out and played like this the whole way, then I would be able to form a better opinion of him. So I think that's the issue, that we don't quite know how good he is yet. And I'm just not willing to go on these 2 games and say, oh, you know what, this is the next Beckenbauer or the next Bobby Moore or the next whoever the best Greek centre-back ever is.
Yep. No, I got nothing there. Okay. Who was your man of the match, Tom?
You know what? I come out of the ground last night and someone said, who do you think played well? And I was like, I don't know. The football it was so nothing. Like, the football just played no part in that for me. I'm going to go Aubameyang because he got 2 goals and an assist, but I can't say I was sitting there thinking, fucking hell, Aubameyang's been good today, which I usually am. When I usually sit at the ground and I watch every player and I think he's been good, he's been bad. But yesterday I didn't do that because it was just, the day was about the occasion, not the football.
Yeah. No, it's hard. It's hard, I understand. Schwinn, you got a man of the match?
Mkhitaryan for me. I think when Tony was talking about that one goal that Kolasinac scored and about taking players on, I think Mkhitaryan is also very comfortable at doing that. And the amount of times he allowed us to remove pressure as we were building up and in transition, I think was very good. I've said before that I've been very surprised by his pace, but yesterday I was even surprised by his strength to an extent, to shrug off players and continue holding on to the ball and then find a good pass. He might not have racked up numbers in terms of goals or assists, but I think he was the catalyst in a lot of moves. And I think every time he had the ball, he made the right decision. So low-key, I think he had a very, very good game. And for that reason, I'd give him my man of the match.
Well, I'm not going to go my little man Xhaka. My new boy Mafropanos, I'm not going to go him either. I'm actually going to go Lacazette. I thought he was absolutely brilliant yesterday. He seemed to get into positions, and I know that assist to Aubameyang, could have been anybody, but just the control of that ball, and he just seemed to be really enjoying his football as well. Prior to
looked very sharp yesterday, very, very sharp yesterday.
Yeah, and you only got to think back when we brought Aubameyang in, them couple of games prior to Aubameyang coming in, Lacazette looked down and out. But he's starting to. I'm excited for the future of Lacazette. Next season, I'm excited for Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan all together. I'm really excited there. I don't know where we're going to go with Wilshere, Ramsey, Iwobi, Xhaka. I'm not sure what the plans are, but I know Aubameyang, Mkhitaryan, Lacazette. I think we can, and Ozil. We can build something definitely around them players. You want to get into some questions, lads? Because we have a absolute shitload.
Always good to hear.
Which is
just
great,
before we do that, can we just talk about Mertesacker a bit and how he was welcomed? I know Tony was at the stadium. It seemed like on the telly that was the loudest roar of the game when he was coming on. Nice to see him, give the boss a hug, give Vic Akers a hug. And every time he got on the ball, it was just the loudest roars from the Emirates faithful. And he almost got a goal, which would have been the icing of the cake. So as someone who was in the stadium, Tony, how great was that? 5-0 up and not a worry in the world.
Well, it started off very early, I think, because they always, 3 players come to warm up and about 15 minutes into the game usually, and then they go back in and the other 3 players come and warm up. But Mertesacker was in the first group of 3, and as soon as he got up, there was and he was trotting along the sideline, there was huge cheers. And it started from then, and we all knew that regardless of score, he was going to get the last 10 or 15 minutes. But then obviously he came on in a time that there was no pressure. I don't know how much they showed of it on TV, but when Chambers was coming off, he done a little bowing down to Mertesacker thing. Just with the arm motion, he didn't actually bend down. But yeah, then Mertesacker got cheered with every touch, and that when you say nearly scored, it made me laugh because he was nowhere near that ball, but the crowd went as if he'd hit the post. He was never ever getting on the end of that ball. But yeah, I mean that would have summed the day up. To be honest, even personally, every time once Mertesacker came on, every time we was anywhere near their area, I was just shouting dive. Even there was one time I think Ramsey was in their area, and there was none of their players anywhere near him. I was still saying go down. So I just wanted to get us a penalty so Mertesacker could take it. And that was the feeling in the stadium. It was we was just, for them 10 minutes or however long it was we was all just there for Mertesacker. As much as Wenger got the fanfare before the game, partially during the game and after the game, it felt like for them 10 minutes that the Wenger situation wasn't happening and it was all just about Mertesacker. He's always had a good relationship with the fans. There's some players that you can appreciate are good players, and I notice this more as an away fan, but they don't have a good relationship with the fans. Whereas Mertesacker, he's always, we spoke about it before, players coming over and clapping the fans and acknowledging the fans, and Mertesacker has always done that, and he's always made other players do it, which again has built that relationship with the fans. So the send-off for him, and it's not like he's been a world-class player for us. He's had some excellent games, and the cup final last year comes to mind. But he's built that relationship where he was always going to get a good send-off, and he'd probably get a better send-off than a lot of players that people would class as better, just because he has that relationship with his fans. I mean, he's known for the celebration he used to do with Walcott, where they jumped into each other. I don't really know what that was about, but again, it's that relationship with the fans, showing off in front of the fans and giving them a bit of enjoyment. So I wasn't at all surprised by the reaction and the send-off he got.
You boys excited for the future of Arsenal?
100%. 100%. I think we've spoken about how these players have got to where they are by a lot of not coaching, essentially. they've got here on their own will and from their own little understanding, which doesn't exist a whole lot in modern footballers. They need to be guided and in some cases have to be given very detailed instructions. I'm not saying that a new manager will suddenly transform this club. That's possible, but not very probable in my book. But with the right guidance and with the right instructions, structured roles, defined responsibilities, harder work, who's not going to take a whole lot of nonsense, who's not going to look the other way when you don't give you 100% on a Saturday, I think things will definitely look better. Mm-hmm. And if, maybe this is as good this time as any to get into this, but if we do get a certain someone that Tony will probably speak about, I think we have a very good chance of suddenly becoming a force and looking like a force, even if it's not very evident in the first season. I think we're on to something special with this timing. As much as I'm an Arsenal fan, I would be a fool to deny that. And let's not forget, we're all Arsenal supporters, first, and then come everyone else. So I'm very excited. I think there's a lot to look forward to. And in the next month, after a new manager is announced, I think there's going to be a lot of activity, a lot of transfers before the World Cup. So even the next month, I think, is going to be very, very interesting, despite having not a whole lot of football.
Tony, I won't go into when a new manager is going to be announced because I think we have a question on it. But we've spoke a few times during the podcast over the last couple of weeks that Allegri, his odds have blown in and in and in. And I think he can get about 3-1 now. You may correct me if I'm wrong. But what I want to know is, and I suppose the listeners want to know is, okay, is Allegri still on the go? And with the World Cup coming around, what time frame are we looking at with transfers and things that Schwinn was just talking about?
All regular listeners will know that Allegri was not only my preferred choice, he was the one that I've said the whole time I thought was most probable as well, due to what's gone on with him in the past. One of my friends sat in the director's box yesterday, just because he was doing a bit of some dealings with the club. And he told me that all of the talk in they didn't directly say Allegri's been appointed, because he obviously hasn't, but he said all they spoke about was Allegri. And basically he said he feels it's agreed that Allegri's agreed to everything, agreed to the contract and whatnot. But that was just the feeling he got. And then also today, a lot of people on Twitter are saying that they've heard various things about Allegri. Sky Sports have said that they now understand it's between Allegri and Enrique, whereas before they were linking Brendan Rodgers and Kovac and pretty much everyone else. So, it looks like it's going to be Allegri. Also, some other people that don't want to be named have also said it's Allegri. We'll see. But from everything I'm hearing, it seems like it's going to be Allegri. In terms of time frame, as you said, stuff's got to get done before the World Cup. We can obviously do stuff during and after the World Cup if either players aren't at the World Cup or if their clubs release them their countries release them for medicals and contract talks, a lot of which will be done with their agents. So it's not the end of the world, but medicals they have to be done. And a lot of countries, especially the bigger countries, don't like releasing players because they want their pure focus on the World Cup. Also, I've spoken on here many times about there only being sort of 2 weeks between the World Cup ending and the transfer window closing. It's 3 weeks. But that's obviously only for the teams that get to the final. So if your team goes out in the groups, which will end by, probably the end of June, then you've got six weeks to negotiate with that player. So it's not the end of the world, but I'd imagine we'd try and get the bulk of our business done before the World Cup, I would imagine. But saying that, a lot of players we've been linked with, there's a Turkish defender who's playing for Freiburg in Germany. I'm not even going to try and say his name. It begins with S. He's not going to be at the World Cup.
If you can't say it, I've got no chance.
He's got like accents and umlauts everywhere. It's just like, it's madness. He's not going to be at the World Cup, so you've got a bit longer to negotiate with him. Similar, Max Meyer, I doubt will be at the World Cup. He's an easier transfer to complete because he's out of contract, and I'd imagine it's already agreed. But if you're looking at players that aren't, Socrates has been mentioned a lot, and again, not going to be at the World Cup. If we go back looking at Malcolm, it's a high chance he won't be at the World Cup. So it's not as cut and dry as the World Cup's on. You can't sign players. It's you can't sign players from bigger nations or from any nation unless they agree to release them from the camp. But it's usually only the bigger countries that keep them. Because say, for example, Costa Rica, if they've got a player that's looking at moving and earning $100,000 a week, believe me, they're going to let him go, because that's sort of unheard of there.
Okay.
So they will release him for the day to do a medical or to speak terms or whatever. They might not let him fly away, and it might be that the Arsenal team have to go and do the medical wherever they're based in Russia. That's also possible. But it doesn't mean, just because the World Cup's on, it doesn't mean transfers you can't do them. But I would expect the majority to be done and dusted before the World Cup.
Okay, so if Chelsea are going to
Swin, can you say the Turkish bloke's name?
I haven't even given it a go, actually. I remember seeing something about it, and if I had a spelling in front of me, then I could probably give it a go, but I don't actually, so I don't know what that's all about. I did see that the Freiburg president, as expected, I think came out and said that it's all bullshit. That doesn't really mean a whole lot, does it?
But they also dropped him for the game straight after.
There you go, then. So it seems like a very Max Meyer situation in that case, where he's almost been reprimanded for a leak or something. The Turk and Aubameyang. I think did you mention that the Turkish club president came out and said that a deal is likely?
So the team he started at in Turkey said that Arsenal have requested all of his youth information, which is standard with a young player. And Bayern Munich were trying to chase him, but it's too late. He'll be playing in the Premier League next year.
Who is this bloke?
I couldn't tell you.
His name's Kaglar, and then it begins with an S, and there's just different names all over, different letters all over the place. He plays for Freiburg. I think he's 21. I've not seen him play, but there's a load of teams throughout Europe looking at him. And the fee is 30 million euros, I believe, that's being quoted. That is about as much information as I can give you.
Yeah, right, okay.
It's a Sven recommendation.
Target.
Yep.
Okay. We'll see what happens there. I was going to ask you something else about the World Cup, but Campbell, that's what I was going to ask you about. He's out on loan, and with a new manager coming in, so you say Sven, he's targeting players. We haven't even got a manager yet, so obviously the manager is going to be, as you've said previously in the last couple of podcasts, we're going to a thing where it's going to be the scouts and whatnot picking these players and the manager more managing the team.
Yeah, so it's a head coach model. It's similar to obviously you follow Roma, and it's similar to pretty much every team in Italy uses it. So if I said to you who makes a Roma signings, I'm pretty sure you'd say Monchi.
Yep.
So that's basically the same system that we're looking to adopt. It's used pretty much everywhere else in Europe uses it. So even Monaco, people go on about hard in with young players, and he's got the young players into the team and improved them as players. But the signings it was someone else, but it's recently changed to the ex-Chelsea guy, whose name's Michael Emiliano, and Chelsea have got that woman whose name's Maria something. Swin knows her name.
Yeah, yep.
So there's more teams adapting to that model. But in Europe, in Spain, in Italy, I'm not so sure about Germany, but in Spain and Italy, that is how it's done. There's no one else does it the way we do it. They think we're mental, but we think they're mental for doing it their way.
Yeah. Okay. So we're catching up with the times, I suppose.
Well, if you think it's an improvement, I don't know if it's an improvement or not. I'll tell you in 2 years. But if you think it's an improvement, we're catching up in the times. If you don't think it's an improvement, we're going backwards.
Okay. One thing that's an improvement may be pissing this fucking computer system to pick players. Never worked that one out. But then again, El Neni hasn't been too bad, I suppose. Who else did it? Oh, Lucas Perez.
Yeah, I think that system was all about penny pinching to an extent. And it produced what it does. We got players for cheap that had attributes that we wanted. But it's turned out to be what it is. They're not top draw players. And yeah, I mean, look, and El Neni we'd make money on. Lucas Perez we'd lose money on. But that system is what it is. It got us players cheaper than probably we would have expected with similar attributes to what we want.
You reckon Lucas
Can I
Perez
just quickly say on that that it seems like Arsenal have heard what we've been saying all along and what Tony's been saying all along, that watch football with their eyes and not with numbers. Stats DNA was a numbers approach, and for good reason, because we saved a lot of money because of that, and we didn't have money at that point. But now we've got someone like Sven who watches football with his eyes and is now buying players based on that information that he's processing with his eyes. So maybe there's a little bit of irony there that we've been saying all along.
Has anyone had a look at Malcolm since we were linked to him in January?
No.
Nope.
No. Okay. Okay, let's get into some questions, lads. So Aaron says, I have a question for you guys. How many times did you cry yesterday? At Tezza and at Schwinn. I'm pretty sure I cried at least 4 times. I had a tear in my eye, as I said earlier, mate. How about you, Schwinn?
It was rough. It was rough, and I don't know if how many times qualifies as a question, because when you're crying for a period of time, then it's not really how many times is it. I mean, what happened after the game, the presentation and everything, was very, very, very emotional for me. And hearing the crowd sing, hearing the crowd stay back, that was fantastic. To see the players give respect, to see the club give respect, and everything that came with it, I thought was absolutely spectacular. So I'm not going to deny that I was very emotional and a wreck at the same time.
Okay, thank you. See, we have a cry baby. Nah, I love
Fuck's
you, mate.
sake.
Fuck you. You're going to get a name for yourself, aren't you, from me? Fence sitter, cry baby. Sorry.
Yeah, send it out to our listeners. Maybe they can hook you up with something.
Shri the Gooner, he'll be all over this shit. Okay, one from the Texas Gooner for you, Tony. Having an effective backline requires a balance as well as understanding between your centre-back pairing. Cos, Mertesacker, had it at their peak. Are we seeing a potential fruitful partnership of Dinos and Chambers, or is it overhyping due to the dead rubber matches recently?
I don't want to use the word overhyping because it sounds harsh and it sounds like I'm being critical, and I'm not, but I can't think of a better word than overhyping, so I'm going to say that. I wouldn't say, like, with Mertesacker and Koscielny, you knew their defined roles, that Mertesacker was going to try and win anything in the air. Koscielny would try and cover the channels, and anything that went long ball over Mertesacker, Koscielny would cover up with his pace and sweep in behind. I can't say that I've seen a partnership in Mavropanos and Chambers yet where you sort of see defined roles, that one of them does this and one of them does the other. I said the 2 games they played together, they both played very well, and I'd say they've both been an 8 out of 10 or more in both of them games. But I don't know if I would call it a partnership. I would say at the moment it's maybe 2 individuals that have played very well together.
Chambers, for me, I've just got to... look, I have to own it, because I said it earlier in the season that I didn't think he'd play another Arsenal game, but geez, he's been playing well lately. He's come to a new level, and I don't know whether he's just maturing or somebody's got in his ear over there, or something's just changed about him where I'm trying to pinpoint the actual game where I've seen him turn his form around, but gee, he's been playing really well. If he continues it, I have to say, well, we've got to give him a go. Okay, Schwinn, one for Vish, mate. Would Cedric Soares, Jack Stevens, Berdenac, okay. Got a few names here. I got no idea.
I have them pulled up.
Have you got it? Yeah.
Yeah.
You rattle them off.
And Bertrand.
Okay.
Yeah, so Cedric, Jack Stevens, Uriel Romeo, and Bertrand.
Be on your
transfer list.
Yeah.
Bertrand is a good prospect. I think he he can provide an option if the new manager deems Kolasinac unfit, as Arsene did for this season. That could have been an embedding period. That could have been just tactical. So we can see how the left back position goes. Luke Shaw is an interesting option, just to throw a name out there. And I've said before that Oriol Romeu could be a good backup for Xhaka, because we don't really have an out-and-out defensive mid who can mop things up when required. So Ainsley Maitland-Niles might take up that role, but I see him more as a box-to-box player who likes to get involved in the attack as well and not just sit back. I haven't seen any inclination from Niles to sit back while we attack so far, albeit we've just seen him there in 2 games. So if I had to pick 2 names out of this as prospects, that would be Romeu and Bertrand. The name that really jumps out is Cedric. We know Tony's a very big fan of Cedric. And if Bellerin is to be sold this summer for one reason or the other, then Cedric would provide a very good option and a very good cheap option at that. He wouldn't be very expensive. I think the net would still be a plus of us selling Bellerin and bringing Cedric. Jack Stevens and the other chap, I've not heard of. I don't think I've ever seen him play for Southampton. So I don't think we'd be looking at that. But that's based just on my limited knowledge.
Okay. Tony Vish again. We'll be signing wingers that have pace. He's looking at Costa. Or Martial, who else is that other bloke? Juan
Cuadrado.
Yeah, that one. I'm having a shocker today. I feel that
I would love for us to buy that Freiburg defender now.
I feel that the reason we struggle against defensive teams is because we are lacking that type of player to take a man and dribble past them with pace, Tony.
I think I've been saying this since our very first podcast, that we need someone that can beat a man. I said it a lot last week, especially against that stubborn Atletico defence. Whether I agree with the names he's listed is a different story. I wouldn't go anywhere near Cuadrado.
Martial's not a bad shot.
No, yeah, I like Martial. But no, I think we've been crying out for that type of player. So I couldn't agree more with the question.
Watching us take on Burnley apart whilst playing at snail's pace emphasises how poor Welbeck is. Aubameyang was a consistent threat that opened up defences. Had he played against Atletico, he would have surely won the game. It's a big call. Would they be partnered together next season, Tony? And that's from Vish again.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't look at yesterday and think this shows how poor Welbeck is. I don't think yesterday told me anything about Welbeck. We know what Danny Welbeck is. He's a nuisance, he's a pest, he's quick, he's strong, and he's not particularly good at football. That sometimes you need that. I still maintain we wouldn't have won the FA Cup last year without Danny Welbeck, and I'll maintain that till the day I die, because we were shit. We kicked the ball long, he chased it, he hassled, he harried, and won it, or he pushed them back and allowed other players to join in. And I maintain that about Welbeck. That's what he's good for. Look, Aubameyang's clearly a better player. I don't think anyone's ever questioned that. And if they did, they're on some superior drugs. But I didn't look at yesterday and think, that makes Welbeck look a poor player. Similarly, I don't know if Aubameyang would have made a difference against Atletico just because of the way they play. They set up to defend, and they don't really care who they're playing against. They set up in their mould. So, yeah, I don't know if he would have made a difference. It's easy to say he would have done because he's a better player than Welbeck. But that doesn't necessarily mean he would have done more. You could say they both played against Southampton and Welbeck scored 2 and Aubameyang didn't. You could say that, as to use an argument the other way. I mean, again, I don't believe it, but you can pick out individual performances to suit whatever argument you want. In terms of will we see Lacazette and Aubameyang together, I think we pretty much have to, whether it be in a 2 up front or like yesterday. I've said on here many times, I'm still not sure if I like or dislike that I have absolutely no idea where Mkhitaryan's going to turn up. I like him as a player. I'm not saying I don't think he's a good player. I'm saying in terms of the system, I'm not sure if I like it. But yesterday, it was the same between Lacazette, Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan. All 3 of them, you didn't know where any of them were going to pop up. And it seems to confuse the hell out of Burnley. So even if we don't see them in a 2 up top, we may see them in a similar system to how we did yesterday, where Aubameyang could find himself central and Lacazette might find himself on the left or right, or they could all be central, or two could be wide and whatever. But it's difficult to say. I mean, in years gone by, we've always been able to predict what we're going to do because we know how Wenger works. So I could predict every sub.
Going to work.
Exactly. I could predict every sub at sort of pretty much what minute it was going to happen, who was going to come off, how our shape may or may not change. That was very easy for me to do because I've seen it for 22 years. Now, when someone starts warming up, you're going to have to think, I don't know how this sub's going to work. You can think, it might be like for like or whatever. So until we know what a new manager is going to bring in, it's very hard to predict what we're going to see next season.
And just because that question was based around Atletico Madrid, just to rub salt in the wounds, we couldn't score fucking a goal past them, and they lost 2-0 yesterday. I can't remember who beat them, but
yeah, they lost to Espanyol, but I think they let their mums and nans play.
Okay, I didn't see the game. I just seen the result, and I thought, oh, fuck, mate.
Yeah, no, I heard the result, and then I saw someone else say they played literally like no one played, because I think they're pretty much secured in second now. Okay. And not that second and third makes a blind bit of difference, but I think they're pretty much secured in second. And obviously they've got the final in 10 days now, I think it is.
So they play with second team or something. Okay. Okay, another one for Vish. We'll run with you. Schwinn, does the new manager change our style of play? Do we stick with the Wenger ball, or does the new manager have freedom to implement his own style? Personally, I love the Wenger ball with the Gen press like Liverpool provide. We have a solid defence and midfield to complement.
I don't think we have the players for a gegenpress. We don't have the legs in midfield to do that. Neither do we have the synchronicity. We have to change our style of play. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I don't think Wenger ball and a pressing game or a defensive game are mutually exclusive. You can play fluid attacking football while also be committing bodies for defense. Manchester City are a good example, a tough example to sort of elevate yourself to. But why not? Why shouldn't that be the standard we're trying to achieve? So I would like for us to play attacking football. I think all of us are on the same boat when it comes to that. And we're used to that at this point. But there's no denying that the new manager has to do much more defensive work with this squad. Tez, you just said a few minutes ago on this podcast that we have the attacking players.
I think we do. Yeah.
And I would agree, and I would imagine so with Tony. But at the same time, I think we need to really look further back and see our defensive issues that all Arsenal fans understand at this moment. That's another reason why Mavropanos was getting so much praise yesterday for every square ball he played or every recovery he made, because everyone realizes that that's been our biggest, looping, gaping hole, essentially. So a new manager has to concentrate on defense, but that doesn't mean that we will not play attacking football.
He mentioned Liverpool, and Liverpool are a lot like us. They got a shocking defence, but they've got that attack that they almost go for the win by outscoring their opponents. Where we've been unlucky this season with that, and obviously the start of the season with the Sanchez issue, Izzo's all gonna. We've always been clouded. Our first half of the season was a shocker with the Sanchez situation, where Liverpool went from day one, with Salah, Mane, and they lost bloody Coutinho, and here they are in Champions League final. So if only it happened to us. But they have defensive issues as well, so we can play that attacking style football, but I would like to patch up our defence, and our defence is something that we need to work on. I'm quite happy, and I've always said, well, we've always maintained we'd like our attacking playing football, but if my team parks the bus and I'm sitting on top of the ladder come this time of the year by 10 points, I'm happy. I just want to win now, boys. Tony, we've got a couple here from MAA Gunner, mate. How soon do you think Cazorla will be back? How do you get the guard of honour so symmetric? And who do you see remaining in the starting 11 next season? Now, we will touch on that one next week because we're going to go through our ins and outs. So just the first two, Tony.
Yeah, so in terms of Cazorla, I was in the pub before the game yesterday and someone showed me a picture of him putting his boots on and saying back soon. And everyone started dreaming of him being on the bench and then getting the last 10 minutes or whatever. I mean, we all know he's not fit enough, but to play the last 10 minutes just for a little clap would have been nice. I don't know if he's got potential to appear in either the Leicester or the Huddersfield game or even sit on the bench for them. I don't know. I don't know how far away he is. We'd all love to see him play again. He's not been offered a contract. I think that's pretty much common knowledge. He said himself, Arsenal haven't offered him a contract. So it remains to be seen with him. All I can say is I hope to see him play again. In terms of the so symmetrical, I think they just stand in line with the person next to them. And if everyone does that, you end up in straight lines.
Fair enough. Shri the Gooner says, Schwinn, now the majority of the fan base has gotten Wenger out. How many are still on the Kroenke outboat?
More. I think more fans have wanted Kroenke out than they wanted Wenger out. That's one of the major reasons that I've always supported Arsene, because the restrictions that the Kroenke ownership has applied onto the club have had us shackled, and Arsene has done very, very well to navigate them. I'm not the biggest fan of Stan Kroenke or the way he runs the football club. I think we're all in accordance there. Mm-hmm. But there's also no denying that we have grown as a club under him. You know, we might have that argument falls flat in the last year or two, and I'm not trying to defend Stan Kroenke here, but I think Arsenal has increased in stature and in value for customers, for investors under Stan Kroenke. He's a very astute businessman. He brings a certain acumen. I think why we as a fan base don't like him is because he leverages us and doesn't necessarily reward us for how he uses us in his deals elsewhere. So just to cut the long story short, I think yesterday was a very good case study in that Sir Chips got a lot of boos when he was shown on the screen, and so did Josh and Stan. We're not going to be able to do away with them unless something miraculous happens. So I don't think there's any merit to doing that, but that doesn't mean that we still don't have a distaste for him in our mouths.
Yeah, of course. I'm still Kroenke out as well as Tony probably is as well, but it's a bitter pill to swallow, really, isn't it? What do you do? Okay, Dean Potter, for you, Tony, do you think Sven is having a major influence in the appointment of our new manager? That's a good question.
Probably not. I mean, he'll be part of the process because he's head of recruitment, not chief scout. So recruitment would include a multitude of jobs. He'll obviously want to know that whoever's coming in is willing to work with him, because, as I said, under this head coach model, if they're not willing to work together, that's where the model fails, and that's where it's failed in England before, that the manager is not willing to work with the head of recruitment or whatever that role was previously called. So, I mean, he'll have a say, or maybe he won't have a say, but he'll be involved in the interview process just to make sure that they're not standing on each other's toes, as we saw with Thomas Tuchel by Borussia Dortmund, where he was banned from the training ground. So I don't know if he'll have a say, or he'll be involved in the interview process and he'll say, I think that one could potentially work best with me and what I plan to do. But it won't be his deciding vote. It won't be he goes out and says, I want this person, and everyone just agrees and they get that done. He'll be part of a board of people. I don't know of how many. I mean, Raul and Ivan Gazidis will be on that board. I don't know who else that decide the manager between them.
You boys spoke last podcast about Allegri, and you're worried about Chelsea. I think Tony wasn't overly worried, but Schwinn was. I can't really remember now. But the other, as you guys were talking about that, I thought of PSG. What's your thoughts there on snatching Allegri?
I think Tuchel's been done for a long time, from what I read. Again, I'm not saying this from any different knowledge to anyone else, but from what you read, it's been all done and dusted for a long time, but not announced, maybe out of respect for their outgoing manager. I don't know, but by all accounts, Tuchel to PSG has been done for a while.
Okay. Prophet Gurner, will Stan Kroenke still be a problem? Schwinn just pretty much touched on that, I think, but you can add more if you want, Schwinn.
Nah, I think it's been covered. Sorry, Prophet Gunnar.
Yeah, RC, what's the one attribute that you would ask each player to really focus on and improve over the summer? Example, Iwobi, composure.
Wow, does he want me to go over every player? Or let's do it this way. That's something I think we can... Yeah, I think that's something we can go in depth for our last episode. So why don't you throw a name at me and a name at Tony, and then we can give you an answer for each.
Okay, Mustafi.
Has to be more patient. I think he's far too aggressive, and he loves to bite when it comes off. As you said, that 60-40 proportion. I would probably go 70-30 and say 70% of the time it doesn't work, 30% of the time it works. So I think he has to be more composed and be more patient while judging when and when not he should be nibbling at his attacker's feet. Before you throw a name out to Tony, Tez, let me throw a name at you. Shaka.
Yeah, you prick. It's not much you can improve, mate. Perfect's perfect. So.
Oh wow! Look at you.
Shaka. Look, obviously there is some improvements there, but his discipline. He has improved on this season. I'm trying to think how many red cards. I don't think he's got a red card this season, but I could be.
No,
I don't think he has.
I don't think he has. So
we've only had one. It was on any.
Yeah. Okay. So he has improved in that area. Look, this. I'm kind of lost for words a little bit, but yeah, there's improvements to be made. But I'm a bit rattled at the moment, Schwinn.
I'd have to agree, and I think it's a wider testament to how good he's been. And I mean, just to name for a namesake, I think positionally he could be a little better. But if you just look at the last few months, I think he's improved in that department as well. So it was not to throw you into a fix because of your love for Granit, but in a way to magnify the point that he's actually been very, very good for the last couple of months.
Yeah,
maybe even more.
I'd like him to be a bit faster, but you can't say, "Oh, mate, go and get some speed about you," because it's not going to happen. Like, that's not the type of player he is. So, so you know that you can't say that. Tony, I would throw a Iwobi at you, but RC's already said it with composure. So I'm going to throw your boy at you, Jack Wilshere.
I don't know if it's concentration or focus, but he gives a lot of easy balls away, and we know he can play the difficult balls. But say usually where he got the assist yesterday, it's a simple 5-yard ball, and I would fancy any of us to be able to play it. But they're the balls that sometimes I don't know if Jack takes his mind off them because they're too easy or deemed too easy, and he gives them type of balls away. And I don't know if that's down to focus or whatever, but so he either needs to focus on his simple passing, and I'm sure he can do that. He's a talented boy, so I would put that down to concentration or focus.
Okay. That's a really good question, though, RC, and thank you for that. And you, at Zeropa Bob. So that's a really good question, boys. We might touch on that later, Schwinn, and come through a couple more players, mate.
Well, when we're running through our players next week, we're going to, just for all the listeners, we're going to do we're going to go through the whole squad, who we should keep, who we should loan, and who we should sell, and maybe we can incorporate that into it.
Yep, sounds good. Okay, Hakon Larson, he says, Schwinn, we actually don't have any clue. I know, we just fucking here on the podcast. We've got no idea, mate. How will we line up on the first game of the season with a new manager and players? Is our transfer targets already identified and being worked on without Wenger? Or will our transfer policy be more ruthless, and will we get the most deals done quicker?
Well, of course, this is a question that I don't have any knowledge on. But what I can tell you is what I've heard from our friend, the Plug AFC. And he seems to think that our targets have been identified, and also that these targets are not your typical Sven signings. They might be thrown in there into the mix, but our first priority for the starting 11, according to Jack, are going to be big name signings, jaw dropping, as he likes to call them. So if that's any indication, and Jack hasn't thrown any names out there, but if that's any indication, then we can be sure that we will have a very strong lineup. I mean, I'd throw this question back to Tony and ask him if he's got any additional insight onto this. But from my limited knowledge, that's all I can really say.
Before I go back to you though, Tony, Lacazette last summer, Aubameyang in January. Do you actually see a big target, or big spender, or do you see these Sven Young signings?
Look, I don't see a big money name coming in. I really can't. And I don't like the term jaw dropping, and I'm not taking anything away from Jack. I talk to him often and get on with him, but it's very loose. And anything, you could spend 1 million and it could be jaw dropping. So I think that I can't see a big name coming in. I can't see anyone with a hefty fee. I think all the targets are pretty much locked in. A new manager may have one or two players that they've identified that they would like to bring with them. But similarly, I believe that the manager's already agreed to become Arsenal manager. So they could have said, I'll become Arsenal manager. Here are people I would like to bring with me. Can you try and incorporate them into your transfer plans? That could have happened. But I think the majority of signings will be maybe unknown to us or to the average football fan. Like this guy from Freiburg, this defender. I don't know if we're signing him, but he's 21. He's rated at 30 million, and he's looked at everywhere in the world. So it's not a typical Sven signing in terms of he usually shops around the sort of under 5 million mark. So I don't think we'll get a lot of them, but I think we'll get players that are maybe quite expensive, but with a potential to be a whole lot more. So the likes of this Turkish bloke, the likes of maybe Max Meyer. I know he's on a free. Or, I mean, the keeper we've been linked with a lot is Alban Lafont, who's 18, and they're talking about a 30 million-ish fee. But if he's 18 and as good as everyone says he's going to be, then that 30 million could look like nothing in a few years. Similar to the way Man United got De Gea, who wasn't really a big household name. He was a young keeper that looked too skinny, and now he's worth whatever they want, really. So I think we'll see more signings, more that type of signing, that they're not cheap, but they're sort of doing good elsewhere, but they're young and they have potential to grow.
Just for fun's sake, because I'm a fun type of guy tonight, Allegri comes over. Who's your one player from Juventus you want to come with him?
Chiellini.
Schwinn?
Dybala.
Ooh.
I don't know where I'll fit him, but I'd go for him nonetheless.
I'm gonna go. Can Schnezny come back?
So that's it. I don't think Chiellini is their best player, but he's out of contract, so it wouldn't cost anything. And I just think he'd organise a line for a year or two.
Okay. How old is he now?
33 or 34.
33, 34. Yeah, he'd do a good job. Yeah, we do need him as a back. Yeah, he'd be good. He will be good, actually. Okay. Sorry, boys, I got sidetracked here. Hakon Larsen again. Sterling and Sané, Hazard, Willian, all wingers, brilliant one-on-one. We have almost no players at all that can take on the defensive play in a tight space to get past. Crucial against any opposition and essential in any team, in opinion. Thoughts, Tony?
Again, it's similar to Vish's question earlier, and I couldn't agree more. I've been saying it since the very first podcast. It's why I so heavily wanted Mahrez last summer, for this exact reason. And yeah, again, I can't agree more. I want someone that can beat a man, but I think he's used very good examples because he's not picked players who have bags of pace and they can run past people if there's loads of space. The players he's picked, Willian, Hazard, can all beat players in a small amount of space, and I think that's what we need. Because when teams pack the defence against us, there's not that space in behind to run into. So you need players that can beat someone in a small area. And again, that's why I wanted Mahrez. But Willian, Hazard, they're both excellent at that. They only need a yard or two. Them players are very hard to come by. But I would agree that's the type of player we need.
And he's asked one more, and this is just very based on what we just done a minute ago. So, but he's asked for 3 or 4, but we'll just go one each. So he's saying basically, if these coaches come to Arsenal, name 3 or 4 players that could come with them. Now, Conte from Chelsea. So just name one, Schwinn, from if Conte was to come to Arsenal, who's a player he would bring with him?
Christensen.
Tony?
Olivier Giroud.
Actually,
I would love it.
Yeah, I was going to say Giroud as well. Hazard's another one that rings a bell, but that would never happen. Jardim from Monaco. Schwinn?
Thomas Lemar.
Yeah, Lemar. Yep, that's my man too. Tony?
I mean, I would say Lemar, but it's the obvious one, so I'll go Sidibe.
Righto.
Actually, no, I won't. I'll go Fabinho.
Okay. Sarri from Napoli. Schwinn?
Dries Mertens.
Freaking hell. Yeah, righto. Tony?
I would have said Mertens, but as he said him, Insigne. I think it's very close between. I'd like either of them. I think it's very close between the two of them.
Yeah, righto. Yeah. Mertens for me too, but...
How has no one said Koulibaly? That's unbelievable.
Or Jorginho. I think that's the thing with Napoli. There's so many good options to pick out from. And of course, we're not... I mean, I'm in particular not giving... realistic answers. I'm just going for my favorite players from this team because why not?
Well, I was actually why I got stuck. I couldn't remember the name of their keeper. I think, fuck, is he any good? And I still can't remember his name. I still can't think of his name.
Pepe Reina.
Pepe Reina.
Oh yeah. Okay, got it. Yeah, no, I don't want him. Okay. Shri the Guna, realistic expectations for the club in the next 4 to 5 years in terms of financial and footballing directions. Tony? She's a tough one.
Look, my big worry, and it was my big worry when Sven came in, is that we're going to be a selling club. I don't know if that's true, but again, we're looking at targets that could have a whole heap of value in the future. The positive that comes with that is that we'll always be able, if it works, is that we'll always be able to rebuild. There's nothing wrong with being a selling club, or not so much a selling club, but if, say, you're like Man United, who bought Ronaldo for 15 million and sold him for 80, there's nothing wrong with selling in that sort of situation because you can afford to go again. Like Liverpool with Coutinho, they've sold him, and with that they've brought Van Dijk, they brought Keita, they essentially brought Chamberlain with that money as well. So there's nothing wrong with that model because you can always afford to go again and to re-sign, to re-strengthen in other areas. So as long as that model works, I think that's the kind of route we'll go down. I'd be hesitant to say selling club, but I can't think of another way to put it.
Putting the money, finances back into the club and basically, buying the younger players to finance our other transfers. Yeah,
I mean, it may look like, you're selling your best player all the time. But it has to work correctly. Tottenham showed when they sold Bale that it doesn't always work if you do it wrong, because they got a whole heap of money for Bale at the time, and they spent it on, barring Eriksen, none of them have done any. I mean, most of them have gone. Lamella and Eriksen are the only two still there, and Lamella's not pulled up trees. Most Tottenham fans aren't convinced with him. So you have to do it right. But I think that's the type of road we'll go down, where if we sell a superstar a year but we get stupid amounts of money and we can afford to reinvest, then so be it. And I think that's a model a lot of clubs are going to have to work on, unless you've got the Arab money or Barcelona or Real Madrid money. As I said, we've seen Man United do it in years gone by with people like Ronaldo. So it's not, I don't even think it's a financing. I think it's a thing of the Arab money clubs are always going to be paying a lot more than you, and Barcelona and Real Madrid are always going to have more prestige than us.
Yeah. And we'll answer the next part of his question next week, because how many of the starting 11 stay past Wenger according to you guys? So we will come to that. He also asked Tony, what do you guys think about the whole finance situation?
So I've said before, the reports were 50 million transfer budget plus player sales. Look, I've said many times I believe it to be around 70 that they're willing to spend plus player sales. So I don't think that 50 is a million miles off what people think. But as I've said before, people look at 70 and think, oh, that will only buy you one player. But if it's 70 net, I look back and I can't remember a window where I don't think we've ever spent that, or maybe once we spent 70 net. So it would still be our biggest budget ever, even though a lot of people are moaning that that's too small.
Would a club come out though and say, "Oh, we're spending 70 million," or is someone leaking it?
Oh no, it's leaked. It's not from the club, and Arsenal. It was 50 million. The report, and Arsenal denied it. It was just from a newspaper. I think it was the Times or the Guardian.
Oh, okay.
But Arsenal have come out and denied it, and everyone was going, no, it's about 150, 200, but I believe it's about 70.
Okay.
As I said, we've never spent 150. I think people might be getting confused with the amount we were able to spend, but they're saying the net budget is that. So, as I said, I don't think we've ever spent 70. We maybe in the Mustafi Xhaka window did, but I don't think we did. I think we were slightly underneath. I did look it up a couple of weeks ago, and I think with player sales, it was just in and around that 70 million zone. So it would still probably be our biggest ever spending window if we spent 70 million.
Yeah. Okay.
Net.
Schwinn, Sandeep Singh says, sad to see Arsene leave. Do you think he'll be getting a stand name or after him, or a statue because he deserves it?
He'll deserve a statue for sure. I mean, we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, and I would go as far as naming the stadium, and maybe, if not the stadium, the stand. But there's reasons for either of those things not to happen. A stadium has a statue. My mistake, has to be commissioned even before the end of the season, in my opinion, just to solidify that promise and deliver on it as soon as possible. But we can try and do things more. I remember mentioning that if he can somehow, if we can convince him somehow to come on board as an ambassador for the club and do some liaison work, do some promotion work for the club, go out to some other countries where football is still growing in popularity, go represent the Arsenal, go meet with young fans, aspiring footballers, go speak with them, give them some knowledge, some wisdom. I think that would be a fantastic opportunity for him to go see what he has created in the Arsenal. We've become an international brand because of him, arguably. And if he goes and sees the fruits of that, I think that would be very, very nice for him on a personal level as well. So I think there's a lot of ways we can involve him and a lot of ways we can thank him. And a statue, I think, is only the starting point.
Yep. I think he needs a statue. It's going to be hard to name a stand after him, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, Tony said it very eloquently when we discussed this last, that we've always followed tradition. We've had the clock end, the North Bank, and the East and West Stand, and we've never, moved away from that. And if there's one person who wouldn't want to break this tradition, it's Arsene. So keeping that in mind and assuming that is the truth, then I don't think we would like to break tradition that Arsene doesn't want to necessarily break. So as I said, a statue can be a starting point, but there's a lot of ways we can involve him and thank him from here on out.
Big Bad Wolf, Mafropanis, the clock and talk. Tony, are you not entertained? Mafropanis was outstanding again today. Really was puzzling that Wenger had been reluctant to use him early. Do either of you believe Wenger didn't use him as he wasn't brought to the club by Wenger?
No, I don't believe that's why he hasn't used him, because we all know Wenger, not only obviously it was his job to win football games, but it sounds stupid, he really wants to win football games. So if he felt someone would have gave him a better chance of doing that, I fully believe he would do it. So I don't think that's why he didn't put Mavropanos in. Look, from what I've heard, and I've said on here before, I didn't watch the under-23s with Mavropanos in, but most people said, he's quite good. No one was like, he's pulling up trees. I didn't see anyone demanding for him to play. So if that's what we're seeing on match day, and you've got to assume that that's similar to what Wenger was seeing in training, then you can understand why he wasn't being played. But I mean, for me, I'm assuming Schwinn will agree. I refuse to believe that Wenger thought, this guy will really improve us, but it wasn't my decision, so I'm not going to play him.
Okay, Schwinn from Brad's, was Ozil actual injured? I'll go back to you, Tony. Was he actually injured or was it a random?
Oh, fuck
injury?
you.
Well, how are you going to know if he's injured? Well, go on, have a
I
stab.
thought
Was he injured or what?
He wasn't he? I mean, that's what is claimed.
I don't know.
That he has a back problem. So I'm not going to refute that.
Injured, illness, yeah. And would you guys play? Oh, yeah. Okay. So was he injured, Tony? Illness? What's the story?
No. So the report says he has a back injury. I can understand where the question's coming from because he is ill a hell of a lot, and I say ill in inverted commas. But no, as I said, all reports say that he really wanted to play, and from what I know, he really wanted to play. So he possibly did. He didn't look a happy man at the ground. I think he left very quickly after I think he was one of the last people out the tunnel to form the Guard of Honour, and he was one of the first ones back in. And by all accounts, he left the Emirates pretty quickly, and I don't know if that was a bit of displeasure at not being able to play when he wanted to. But he was still there. But yeah, so reports say he really wanted to play, but the medical team wouldn't let him.
Okay, a question for Brad's, from Brad's, at Original Brad's. That was from Brad's as well. Would you guys play fucking tongue twisted now, Mafropanos and Chambers together for the rest of the season? And I'll answer this because these other two clowns don't rate him and they want him gone on loan. So I'll actually say yes, I would play him together for the rest of the season. Right, moving along, Schwinn. I don't know if they want him on loan or not.
I said last week I'd have played him in 2 out of the 3, and yesterday being the one I wouldn't have, just because I thought it was going to be more of a send-off. So yeah, I mean, I would. I had him in my head. I had him playing these next 2 games anyway.
Yeah. Would you, Schwinn?
It's a tough one. I don't want us to lose these next 2 games, and away from home we haven't been convincing. Well, I don't think we can drop below Burnley at this point, but I want to give Arsenal a good send off, and I don't want us to end this season without picking up points away from home. I'd play both of them, but alternatively, I'd play one in one game and the other in the other. So I don't know if I'd play them both together for both the games.
We've sewn up 6 now, haven't we? We can't fall below Burnley now.
We only needed a draw yesterday because of the goal difference.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what your odds are over there, but Arsenal's $2 and Leicester City are $4. It's a good bet. Get on the Arsenal at $2. Okay. Patrick Green says, talk about Mertesacker, Scott, and especially Vic Akers to only ever Arsenal manager to win the Champions League. Tony?
Yeah, so obviously they all hung up their... Well, I don't know what Vic Akers hangs up. That's his job. But so Mertesacker and Alex Scott have hung up their boots as of yesterday. Obviously, we spoke about Mertesacker. Alex Scott had the most caps for England women. She's won stupid amounts of league titles and Champions Leagues and every honour there is in domestic club football. For us, what was the best thing, and I don't know if you caught this on TV, that when she was, they announced everything she'd won, which was however many titles and whatnot, and then they awarded her whatever it was they were presenting to them. But the whole crowd started singing Tottenham Hotspur, "She's won more than you," which was a particularly good moment yesterday. So yeah, I can't claim to be a big fan of women's football, but she's gone into the media. She does a lot of media work now, and obviously wish her all the best. And then Vic Akers, I was asking this question to people yesterday. Whoever gets his job, I feel really sorry for, because with the kit that he wears, they don't make trousers for that because he refuses to wear them. He wears shorts at all time. So next season, if we get a team away that play in -30 and the bloke goes, "Where's my trousers?" Sorry, they don't exist. So I feel sorry for whoever's taking that role. But no, in all seriousness, he done brilliant as a women's manager. I don't particularly know what a kit man does, but I assume he's good at it because he was there. The players all seem to like him. Obviously, at Arsenal, we come out in like warm-up jackets when we come out of the tunnel, and then they give them to him to take off the pitch once they've shaken the other team's hand. And usually they all just sort of chuck them at him, and they end up on the floor, and he picks them all up. But yesterday, every single player took it off, handed it to him, and gave him a hug as they were doing it. So they've obviously got some form of respect for him. So I mean, I don't know if he's not going to go on to do anything else. I'd imagine he's not a young man, but all the best for him in whatever he chooses to do with the rest of his life.
Yeah, I didn't know who the lady was. I didn't mention it earlier because I didn't know. We don't get any women's football over here from there, so I had no idea. So, okay. So she's retired, has she?
Yeah, so I think she's been out injured for a while, so she hasn't played for a while. She would have been. So we lost the cup final on Saturday, and she would have been back fit, but she wasn't selected due to just not being playing for a while. But she's got like 140. She's the most capped England player ever of either gender. She's got like 140 something caps. She's been at Arsenal for ages. She's been at Arsenal since she was 8 years old.
Wow.
Obviously, not playing for the women's team at 8.
Yeah. But she's been
she's been at club. She's 8-year-old, and now so she's now retired, and she's been doing a lot of media work already. So I assume she's going to continue with that.
Yeah. Okay. I've got a couple more. Clay says, who played better today, Chambers or Mafropanos? Schwinn?
Chambers for me. Tony touched upon this, and I don't think we should get into it a whole lot. But Chambers for me has low-key been better. More excitement around Dinos, but I think that's helped Chambers to take some attention off of him and just get on with his job.
So Clay just doesn't like Mafropanos, mate.
I have nothing against him, and I don't think Tony does either. Just a bit cautious. Just quickly, based on Patrick's question, I think we should also mention Santi Cazorla, who was at the Emirates, and of course he was a part of the team that took the lap of honor, and it was nice to hear Santi Cazorla ring around the Emirates. Don't know if we'll get to see him. My guess would be not, at least this season. So just one more person that got lost in yesterday and in the emotion of yesterday. So he's been a pleasure to watch, and I've just been glad to witness.
Yeah, I didn't look. There was no send off or anything there, and I think he may make a bit of a comeback or something. Just you know what I mean? They didn't say, "Oh, that's the end of him. He's retiring." So maybe he will come back next season. I know Tony said he wasn't offered a contract, but it doesn't really mean nothing, does it?
No, it doesn't mean a thing. I'm just saying he's not been offered a contract as of yet. It doesn't mean anything.
But he might come back next season, even off the bench or something, maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they give him a pay-as-you-play or whatever. But yeah, as of I think it was on Friday, he done the interview saying he's not been offered a contract.
Yeah, okay. Texas Gooner for Tony. Aubameyang and Lacazette seem to have developed a good on-the-pitch understanding. What policy do you foresee being developed with whoever comes in as manager? Rotation or fitting them both in the mix? Obvious depends on new managers, so what scenarios do you see fitting?
I think just because of how prudent we are with cash as a team, I think you've probably got to try and fit them both in somehow. Obviously, from then on, it depends with the manager, whether they go 2 up front or they go like they did yesterday, where, as I said, everyone can just turn up. Anyway, I mean, the joy is that when Aubameyang plays wide, he's got the pace to get into and the instinct to get in the middle. And Lacazette often drops short or comes wide, or he could turn up literally anywhere. So I think you've got that them two abilities sort of match well with each other. So I think there's maybe a few different systems they could play, and I think beyond that, it's just going to be down to whoever the manager is and whether he chooses to play them both and how he chooses to play them both.
And you just said, like, and just the statement off this question, we have ourselves a real special striker in Aubameyang, in his opinion, a lethal box poacher. I have to agree. Glenn Baxter, 1980. I am just about to block Glenn, so because he says, cheeky bastard. Well, actually, I can answer this question. How much will we get for Xhaka? Tez. If Neymar went for 220 million...
20 million.
Xhaka would be up around the 260, I think. You'd have a new record signing.
For fuck's sake.
He also says, when do you think the new manager will be announced? And typical fucking Australian, no fucking clue. How would we know, mate? Like, come on. Fuck. Tomorrow. I'm blocking this clown. Block.
Within 10 days of Huddersfield would be my guess.
Okay. There you go. You got an answer, bonehead. Fucking Glenn. Cheek.
That's the best question we've gotten this season.
I'll tell you why he's got the shits, right, boys. He's had the shits all season. Well, he's had the shits since January because his lover boy was Giroud. So Giroud's gone to Chelsea, so he's been all fucking south ever since. Okay, only because I know Glenn well, so. Okay, thanks. Arson says, did you guys notice the movements of Aubameyang and Lacazette? I remembered at the 36th minute we had the ball and Laka and Aubameyang were parallel to each other, but Laka looked like he wasn't interested and ended up at the edge of the box while Aubameyang was in the 6-yard box. Schwinn?
I don't know if Ali, I think that's the one who sent the question, is necessarily praising or complaining, if I'm honest. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did notice the movement, and in fact, when we were discussing the game, I meant to bring it up. I think the fact that Lacazette drops deep and he likes to feel the ball, as we've discussed several times, helps Aubameyang, because usually Lacazette will drag a defender with him. And there were times when Aubameyang was making those, inwards runs from the flank. Dino's tried to find him a couple of times with those threaded balls, and it did, of course, to work out. But having a striker that drops deep and combines with the midfield will open up spaces for your wingers. Now, Mkhitaryan isn't necessarily one who's going to make those darting runs, but Aubameyang will. So I'm not sure whether Ali is praising or complaining, as I said, but to me, it opens up play, and I think it provides a different option. So I'm happy with the movement, but Ali, we would like to know whether you are or not.
Tony?
It's why Aubameyang will always score more goals than Lacazette. It's not... Look, when he was playing up front on his own, it really wound me up that he didn't get in the box, and everyone knows that, and all regular listeners will know that. When he's got someone with him, it's not a bad thing to drop to the edge for pretty much the reason Schwinn just said. If there's two centre-backs and there's two strikers, if they're both in the 6-yard box, very easy to mark. You block the 6-yard box. If one's on the edge and one's in the 6-yard box, then the centre-backs have to split, and then it gives more room for movement. There's more room to move into. So I think they complement each other in that sense, but when Lacazette's playing on his own, it does my head in, as everyone knows.
Do you think a new manager, we can't answer because we don't know, right? But a new manager comes in, and do you think with Aubameyang and Lacazette, we've got Mkhitaryan and Ozil there, do we tell our right and left backs to stay back and not use them like we do with Wenger? So we play more of a defensive role with them guys in the attack.
It's always going to depend on the manager and their philosophy, but it also does depend on the players. With the players you've just named, then none of them are touchline huggers, which means we're not going to get any width unless we use the fullbacks to attack. So if it is Mkhitaryan and Aubameyang coming from the left with say Ozil at 10 and Lacazette up front, just for the sake of argument, Aubameyang's going to tuck in. Mkhitaryan's not naturally a wide player. He's going to tuck in somewhat, and Ozil's not particularly going to go out wide. So you end up with no width at all, and all players sort of within the width of the 18-yard box, which means you do need your fullback to stretch the defence. But that's based on our current system. Our system could completely change, but for our system to change where our wingers provide that width, we would need different players. We'd need wingers that are capable of doing that. So with these type of players, the fullbacks are essential. But if the type of player changes, then the type of system can change.
Okay. Last question. Hakon Larson. Why will we get in the top 4 next season, and why will we miss out, Schwinn?
We'll get in the top 4 if we get a good manager that can lift the squad up to the level that it is capable of performing. And we won't, because we won't get the right manager. I think it's as simple as that. The squad has the capability to do it with a couple of additions. And with the right manager, I think we can fetch that quite easily.
Tony?
We will, because we have good enough players to, and the fans will hopefully be behind the team. We won't, because a new manager adapting to a new set of players doesn't always work straight away.
I think we will on the back of Aubameyang and Lacazette and Ozil. I think they'll have a really, really big season next year. Is my will. I think we won't, because as Tony said, the manager adapting to the new players, and just take a little bit of time to click, I suppose. Okay, boys, let's have a quick look at this Leicester game coming up. And everybody, thank you for your questions. It's awesome that everyone gets in touch. I think we try and get through just about all the questions. So we had 30-odd questions, I think, then. So thank you, and you can get your questions to us at clockend_talk. Quickly, Tony, Leicester, Arsenal, 2 days' time. Predicted lineup. And I won't ask you for a prediction, but what's your thoughts on how we'll play?
I'm not going to do a scoreline prediction, but for some reason, and I don't know why, because obviously our away record is what it is, but I just feel like we're going to win. So we're going to pick up our first away points of the year. I don't know why I feel that. It's probably irrational. In terms of team, I think we'll see the same two centre-backs. I think Bellerin pretty much has to play. Be interesting between Kolasinac and Monreal, because it seems like he wants to give Kolasinac the end of the season, but is he fit enough to play 2 games in a short amount of time? In the middle, I think we'll probably see much the same teams we saw yesterday, maybe with Ozil in for Iwobi.
Okay.
In the whole, very similar.
Okay. Schwinn?
Check. Monreal, Mustafi, Chambers, Bellerin, Ramsey, Xhaka, Wilshere, Mkhitaryan, Aubameyang, and Lacazette. Prediction 2-1 to the Arsenal.
Okay, I'm going to say we run with exactly the same team that we just beat Burnley with. I think he'll play the 2 centre-backs together. I'd like to see them for the rest of the season, actually, to see how they go. And Vardy will test them. And that's why Tony mentioned it before. You'd like to see the young bloke, Mafropanos, against Vardy, because that's where he probably will be put under the test, isn't it?
Well, both of them. It's not only him. Everyone's going on about how Will Chambers has played, including me. And he's done well against Costa, he's done well against Griezmann, but Vardy poses a whole different threat. So it'd be good. It's not only an audition for Mavropanos, it also is for Chambers, because if he has dreams of starting for us next season, then these are the type of games he has to perform in as well.
So no, I'm looking forward to that battle, and I hope our young centre-backs can get the job done. I'm going to go, I'm going to whack a good couple of $100 on Arsenal at $2, that's on, and I'm actually going to go a predicted score of 3-1. To the Arsenal. Okay, boys, has got anything else there?
No.
Nope.
Schwinn, okay, we will be back. When will we be back? We'll be back on the weekend, after the Leicester game.
Thursday after Leicester.
Thursday after Leicester. Probably be Friday, boys, for me, but...
yeah, but that's your Friday's our Thursday.
Okay, yep, sorry.
I might miss out on that game. On that pod, by the way. I'll be traveling on Thursday.
Where are you traveling?
So
we've just lost all of our listeners.
Yep. All the listeners are gone.
Far from it.
You upgraded
I'm not sure. I think it's Thursday or Friday.
Have you upgraded from that shitbox Ferrari yet?
I only have that for the next couple of days, actually. I'm going back tomorrow to Monaco, so that's when I give that back, because it's a rental. But Thursday, I'm off to Zermatt. Thursday or Friday, one of them too. I'm not quite sure yet. So let's see.
Listeners, you might have to endure Schwinn talking, or you may have a good time. So tune in and see.
Yeah, you'll find out.
Okay, so Schwinn, the crybaby fence sitter, may be here. He may not be. Look, thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Thank you for downloading. You're with us here at the Clock and Talk. You can follow us at @clockand_talk. And Tony is pretty much handling on that account. You'll get me at Tezza. Don't even know how to spell my own name. I think it's a couple of Z's and an A and a H there. And Schwinn at AFC. Schwinn the Fence Sitter. Thank you.
When Arsene Wenger arrived at Arsenal, which is more than 2 decades ago now, everyone was asking the same question. Arsene who? Now, I was privileged to be the Arsenal goalkeeping coach at the club on the day that he arrived, and it very quickly became clear to me and to everybody connected to the club that this man knew exactly who he was. Arsene Wenger, the visionary Arsene Wenger, an inspiration. He has built the Arsenal that we know and love today. He's lived and breathed this club's values, which have been honed over our 132 years of history. He's actually changed the face of football, the face of the game in this country. Hundreds of players owe their careers to him. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the one and only Invincibles Trophy, which Arsene Wenger will now receive to keep. Please give him the greatest welcome you can. Arsene.
And I would like to wish my fellow manager, Ferguson, well and very quickly. Thank you all very well for having me for such a long time. I know that's not easy. But above all, I am like you. I'm an Arsenal fan. That means this is more than just watching football. It's a way of life. It is caring about the beautiful game, about the values that we cherish, and as well that something that goes through all our body, in every cell of our body. We care, we worry, we are desperate, but when you come here, of dreams, we realize And I would like as well to thank everybody at the club who makes this club so special. And I would invite you and really push to support these players, the staff who remains behind me. For me, this group of players has a special quality, not only on the pitch, but off the pitch. And please, I follow this team and support them really next season, because they deserve it. Just would like to finish by one simple word. I will miss you. Thank you all for being such an important part of my life, and hope to see you soon. Well done. Bye bye.